All right, everybody, we are live. Welcome to this week's edition of Fights Unwrapped. I am joined by my co-hosts, as per usual, Alec Carr and Dustin Hunt. And today we have a very special guest, my friend Corey from Boncour Sports. Thank you so much for joining today's show, Corey. I'm going to let you introduce yourself and, type in those plugs, whatever you can.
I'm not gonna take too many bucks away. I appreciate you for introducing me that way, Monique. Appreciate it a lot. Yeah, my name's Corey. I'm from Boncour Sports. If you guys have seen me on Twitter a lot, not the biggest following, but I've been getting a couple of pretty cool guests on the podcast. I have a podcast myself called Boncour Sports Talk. The main thing, obviously, it's all linked to my Discord. It's a sports betting Discord, free to join. I offer at least one free pick a day in the Discord, every single day, of course, and then I'll have like a one on social media every now and then, one in the podcast as well, every now and then as well. Just did a podcast episode of Yanni the Greek today, so it was a pretty cool guest overall. But yeah, I have a free side to my Discord, over 400 members in it. Got over like 30 premium members so far. It doesn't seem like that big of a number, but a lot of people have been joining recently. We're getting promo going a lot, and most people in that premium, about like 70% of the people that are in are on lifetime, which is they've joined monthly, they've joined yearly. They see the transparency we give on not only our daily unit size and totals, but also our unit profits monthly, every single year overall, etc. And we prove every single day that we are a profitable organization. We are a profitable unit. I sports bet for a living. So it's just me trying to beat lines every single day, trying to catch the best plus CLV we can get. Favorite sport, of course, is MMA and UFC. That's why I'm on here, right? But yeah, we move forward from there.
All right. Thank you, Corey, for introducing yourself and those plugs. Be sure to follow Corey's podcast at Boncour Sports. I was on it just recently, and he has some phenomenal guests. So please go and give that a follow and a listen on Spotify. So, guys, we have a lot of headlines to talk about today because there is no fight card this week, but next week is UFC 287, which is a different story. I'm not going to touch it right now. But before we do that, we got to talk about our sponsors real quick, and I'm going to turn it over to Alec Carr. Alec, go ahead and talk about our sponsors.
All right, guys, I say this every single week, and I'm going to keep saying it because I believe in this damn product. If you're in your 30s, but you're still trying to work out and be as active as you were when you were in your teens or 20s, you should probably check out rxhemp.com. This stuff is absolutely amazing. It's CBD cream, CBD ointment. This stuff, it's recovery bombs, all kinds of great stuff on there. I use it because I'm a moron when it comes to working out, and I like to pretend I'm still young. So, guys, check out rxhemp.com and use rxhemp-USN to get 10% off your entire order. And then the next sponsor, it's funny because I'm not the betting guy. Monique and Dustin, I'll leave that up to them. But we might not have a card, but we have a crazy weekend of sports ahead of us. So make sure you visit mybookie.ag today and use promo code USN100 for a 100% sign-up bonus. Again, guys, that's USN100 for a 100% sign-up bonus.
All right. Thank you, Alec, for the sponsorships. And now we are going to get into it, guys, with our headlines. The first headline we're going to talk about is probably the one that a lot of people have in their minds right now. It is UFC San Antonio. There were a lot of controversial decisions made by the judges, as well as some takeaways and mentions from the prelims. So we are going to get started right away. UFC San Antonio recap. Here we go. We are going to talk about our prelim mentions. I'm going to talk about CJ Vergara. Obviously, that second round comeback was spectacular. He was running away in the first round. If anyone didn't catch that fight, he was literally running all around the octagon, trying to get away from his opponent. And then his coach at the Buzzard said he gave you everything he had in that first round. Now, in the second round, he almost got caught with the calf slicer, but he reversed it to top half and then decided to go ground and pound on his opponent. Got an arm triangle attempt there. Sure, took his back got a few more punches in, if that's just some context for anybody who hasn't watched the fight, and then got the TKO win. Now I'm going to go to our special guest, Corey. What did you think of that fight? Were you surprised that CJ Vergara got that comeback win? What are your thoughts?
I'm gonna be honest. No, that's kind of how we bet it in our Discord. We actually had Daniel De Silva to get the round 1 finish. I think it was like plus 500. It was kind of a bad beat overall, right? But talked about it on our podcast episode for every UFC betting show we do weekly. It was that exact fight that was going to happen. CJ Vergara is not necessarily the craziest of finishers overall, and he isn't necessarily the greatest of fighters overall. De Silva is a tremendous fighter, but he only has a round of gas tank. It's kind of like a Makwan Amirkhani fight. Every single time you watch him fight, it's the best fighter in the world at round 1, and he ends up dying off. Looks like a random guy off the street in round 2. And Daniel De Silva looked exactly like that going into round 2. He almost lost the fight. Going into it, lost the position. Obviously, went into the calf slicer, didn't get it, ended up being on bottom. CJ Vergara capitalized, of course. Had it not been that position, I don't even think Vergara would have been able to get those strikes, obviously. I think it's just because Lacerda was down there, that's where it ended up leading it. And he was already gassed, already taking a hit. He's not the greatest at nails, but that's kind of how we wrote it up. It was going to be De Silva round 1, or it would have been over. And I mean, it's exactly how it went. And that's probably why I wasn't as surprised. But if you look at it away from that perspective and he didn't break down the fight overall, it was one of the more fun fights we've seen in the year so far.
Yeah, that's for sure. I agree with that totally. Alec Carr, what did you think of that fight? Did you even watch it? Did you watch the highlights? What are your thoughts?
Of course I watched it. CJ Vergara had his track shoes on. I've never seen anybody like that. Was crazy. That was ridiculous. He literally was sprinting around the octagon. And then yeah, I mean it's exactly like Corey said, you know. Daniel De Silva and CJ's corner said that he burned himself out in that first round. He had nothing left, and Vergara, you know, was good enough to capitalize off of that. He's not the best fighter. He's never going to be a world beater or a contender. But it is interesting when a fight like this happens because it gives you all kinds of confidence. Now, I'm not saying he's going to be in the, you know, top 10 anytime soon. I don't expect that to happen. But it will be interesting watching future fights of his because that kind of win gives you so much confidence headed forward in the fight game. So I'm definitely paying attention to him now.
That's for sure. Okay, Dustin, tell me your thoughts on CJ Vergara and his comeback win.
I'm going to be real. I'm in the middle of moving. I got time to watch Sandhagen and Holm. I'm just being completely real. I took my time to watch the 2 fights I cared about on the card. The rest, highlights, I can watch that. But, yeah, I didn't have time to watch that fight. I'm not going to lie.
It's all good. It's all good. We are going to move on to a few more mentions now. There was Alton Moreno, who had his fight, it went to decision. Some people thought it was a little bit controversial, but I believe his takedowns and his control time really won him the fight. Corey, I'm going to start with you first. Did you agree with the judge's decision at the end for that fight?
Yeah, I mean, it was clear 29-28 for Alton Moreno. I mean, I wouldn't say you could fully argue 30-27, but I wouldn't have been completely shocked on it. The guy outstruck Salvador. Salvador's only really real chances were on the feet. The guy didn't have as crazy damaging of strikes to go ahead and lift him over the top. Obviously, Alton Moreno had the control time, got 3 takedowns to 1 of Salvador. Salvador's only takedown wasn't necessarily for any control at all either. So it was mainly Alton Moreno's fight. It was just one of those wild ones where, I mean, Salvador kind of probably was able to win that fight and he just threw it away. The guy didn't fight his best fight overall, looked dead on the scales, and a horrible haircut on top of that. He pulled off the R9 haircut. It was just fucking horrible. I don't know what the guy was doing, but it could be cussed. My bad. I said fuck. It's my bad.
It's all good, man. It's
all right, perfect.
Good.
Yeah, but yeah,
we really don't care. Believe me.
Yeah, yeah. It was expected. It was Alton Moreno's fight. It was a good matchup for him overall. I think the UFC was trying to push Salvador, but then again, it was also Alton Moreno's hometown, so it was a win-win for the UFC. However that fight went, it was supposed to be fun, and it went exactly as it was supposed to go.
All right, I'm going to go to Alec. Did you watch this fight? What did you think about the decision? Do you agree with it? Tell me your thoughts.
Yeah, I mean, it's a good decision, and I want to urge people to, you know, you got to watch the fight, and you know, it's a very much in-the-moment decision. So, but when you pull back and you look at the stats of the fight, after seeing it too, and then you rewatch it, it's a clear-cut Victor Alton Moreno decision. I mean, I don't have any gripes with it. he landed 63% of his strikes, 52% of his significant strikes, and the control time was there. So I don't listen. He was my guy, the one guy in the prelims that I said you should really pay attention to this fight. So it was a good fight. It was a good fight, and ultimately, I do agree with the decision to give it to him.
All right, Dustin, I know that you didn't watch the fight. Did you, or do you have any comments to make?
I did not. Like I said, Holly Holm and Sandhagen. That's it. Holly Holm.
All right, so when we get to that, I'm going to go to Dustin first when we talk about those fights. Other mentions from the prelims real quick. Trevin Giles and Lucas Alexander with the decision wins. Lucas Alexander had overall the total strikes advantage when it comes to his opponent, as well as control time. Trevin Giles, I had to really watch that fight again because I wasn't there to watch it in the first place, and I believe he gathered more of the total strikes. But we're going to move on to the main card. That's right. We're moving on to the main card right now of UFC San Antonio, starting with Daniel Pineda with the second round guillotine finish. I love me a good guillotine. Anyone who knows me knows I have a BJJ background, so any kind of submission is going to win my heart. And Pineda, I believe, was the dog in one of my other shows, CJP UFC Bets. So I was really happy to see him win with that submission. I'm going to go to Corey first. What did you think about Pineda's performance? Were you surprised? Did you bet on him? What are your thoughts?
Yeah, we bet on Pineda in my Discord. We had him under 1.5 rounds, and unfortunately it botched. It was at plus 1,000, 20 seconds after he got the finish, but we also had him to get the finish in round 2. That was plus 1,400. So, I mean, I couldn't believe the guy was the biggest underdog on the card. It was genuinely insane. Tucker Lutz is not that good. I don't know what people were looking at. I think they were just hoping that Pineda ended up gassing out, and Lutz hadn't been finished in the UFC. Scarcely gets finished overall. Pineda's mainly a submission guy, and you had Tucker Lutz's last fight go against Pat Sabatini, who's tremendous on the ground overall. I don't rate Pat Sabatini as an MMA fighter as much, but when it gets to the ground and the grappling starts going, Sabatini is a very well-renowned guy overall in that department, and the guy didn't get submitted by Sabatini, but then you end up having going against a guy who's a much bigger threat in Pineda, which probably if you put Pineda versus Sabatini would probably be the favorite, and I completely disagree with that. I just don't agree with the lines and the perspective people have on Sabatini and Pineda overall. Pineda is very underrated. These guys who don't necessarily have the greatest of gas tanks but are much more explosive and much more fun to watch, it's because they're better fighters early on. They are much better fighters than most people anticipate them to be, and people just didn't expect Lutz to go ahead and get finished here, and it was just way too good of a line to not jump on. Pineda was the better fighter overall, and if he could keep it up with the gas tank, the guy looked juiced, by the way. He looked like he was on every fucking steroid you could have even imagined going into the weight scale. So that guy did not look like a guy I didn't want to bet on coming in, knowing how good he is overall despite the age. I mean, the guy doesn't even look his age overall. So he performed a lot better than I expected him to. But I mean, regardless, I did bet on him and expect him to win that fight and get a finish, and worked out.
True. Okay, I agree with that. I bet on him, so I was really happy about that. A lot of people got Lutz to win, so that was really a win for me in that column. Alec, what did you think about this fight? Were you surprised that Pineda got the win?
But I mean, I was a little surprised, but I will say this is why we watch, right? This fight was a perfect example of why we watch. Tucker Lutz was on fire in that first round. Just watched it again actually a little bit ago, and he was landing some clean cut shots. And even Rock Pineda at points, and Pineda was firing back and he was landing too, but Tucker Lutz was really looked really, really sharp. I mean, we all know that where Tucker Lutz shines is his boxing. He's incredible. He's got very, I was going to say incredible, but that's exaggerating. He's got very, very good stand-up boxing, MMA boxing. And we saw that on show. And then in the second round, Pineda just kind of did what Pineda does, and so I'm not shocked by it at all. We talked about this last week. I picked Tucker Lutz just because I thought he was going to edge him out on the feet, but I should have known that Pineda would have been the better overall fighter. So I mean, I can't say enough. This is why people need to watch MMA, because it can go from one way to another in a second. And we saw this in this fight, and then it ended in a great submission, like Monique, you mentioned.
That's for sure. Dustin, I know you probably didn't watch this fight, so I am gonna go ahead and skip you for this round. But we do have someone who commented on our YouTube, Amal Asaleh. Thank you so much for tuning in and appreciate the comments. As for anybody who is tuning in, thank you so much. Please like and subscribe and follow our YouTube, our Twitter, and Instagram and Facebook. We're on all socials, so please go ahead and give us a follow or a like or a subscribe. And we are going to move on to the next fight. So we got Duryev, who won by decision. He pretty much won in terms of the control time, and his takedowns were pretty sharp. So I have nothing much to say because I watched that fight maybe once or twice. I had to watch it back because I wasn't there to watch it live. But what I saw was just pretty a dominant performance by Duryev, and I was definitely wrong in betting on Chidi, but I was definitely disappointed when it came down to it. So I'm going to start with Alec first. Alec, were you disappointed in Chidi's performance? What did you think of Duryev? Share your thoughts with us.
I'm just disappointed in Chidi. Like, we all got hyped up for Chidi coming into the UFC when he did. Incredible kickboxer, which he is. I mean, he showed that in this fight. He landed that. I think that it was this fight. He landed that teep kick that just came out of fucking left field. Like, he had moments in this fight, but it's just, when you get somebody like this, I got super hype about him when he was coming into the UFC. I thought he was really going to be something special, but for every one person I pick right, there's always 5 people who don't pan out. I think Chidi is really going down that route. I don't think we're going to see much more of him. He's definitely an undercard hero from now on. And Duryev, what can you say about it? I mean, it was a great showing for him. Takedowns were on point. His striking was better than I originally even thought. He just had a good overall fight. And Chidi, I'm sorry, man, but you've lost. Not that you're gonna listen to this, but if you do, you've lost a supporter. I won't be able to pick him again going into another fight. His game just hasn't evolved whatsoever since coming into the UFC. And we all know that's the name of the game, is you get to the UFC, you got to keep moving. And we'll talk about that later on in the main event, because that is the perfect example of a fighter who continues to try to learn new things. So, I'm not upset in the outcome at the end of the day, but I am upset as an early adopter of Chidi of just being proven wrong all over again.
Okay, Alec, you heard it first, guys. Alec with his comments on Chidi. I'm going to skip Dustin for a little bit, but we're getting closer and closer to that co-main event where he pretty much is going to shine with his comments. And I'm going to go to Corey. Corey, what did you think about what happened with Duryev versus Chidi?
Yeah, we called Duryev in the Discord and on the MMA show. The only thing is, I said it was either Durayev's going to get completely knocked the hell out really, really early, or it's going to be his fight. However, I didn't expect Chidi to fight like an idiot. Chidi just did not want to throw. I don't know what it was. The guy just felt. Bro, I've never seen him just completely be so tentative. So I said this on a podcast. I said this in the Discord as well. In the RoboCop fight, obviously you saw RoboCop get knocked out in his fight right after. Obviously, Vera punches like a fucking truck, so obviously it's not the biggest concern to go ahead and get knocked out by him. But RoboCop's chin took a fuckload of things against Chidi, and it was insane how durable he was in that fight. I said Chidi took his chin. I also said RoboCop took Chidi's balls, because there's no fucking reason that Chidi does not throw against the chinniest guy he's been given in the UFC. Chidi also is a guy who, when on the ground, it's not easy to finish him when he's on the ground. It's not the hardest to get him down. But Albert Duryev, of how good he is on the ground, how good he is with a submission on the ground, or a good ground and pound overall, that guy didn't give him a finish. So I thought it was a pretty poor performance from Duryev, regardless of whether or not I bet on him. And it was also a pretty poor performance by Chidi. It was just him being much worse in his performance. The guy, Duryev, does not have the greatest chin. Joaquin Buckley made Duraev look like a guy that should not be fighting in the UFC at all. And Buckley's great, but Buckley's pretty small for that division. And I mean, it just didn't make any sense how that fight went for me. I thought it was going to be a little bit better in the sense where it would have been more exciting early on. I would have had to get through a lot of a sweat to go ahead and watch Duraev get through a Chitty bomb or so. But yeah, I mean, Chitty ended up disappointing, thankfully. But it was just plus money I couldn't let go.
Corey, do you think it was because he was so worried about the takedown, or do you think he has a case of the yips and just is not the same fighter anymore? Because you're right, it's absolutely like it was such a weird fight where he had moments where you were like, all right, he's gonna get going, and then he would just stop.
Yeah, it's weird though because you would think it'd have to be solely because of the takedown, right? But the guy has dealt with people who can take him down, and he goes ahead and throws against him. I mean, Dusko Todorovic was one of them. Dusko is going to 100% be trying to shoot at you and take you down. Gregory Rodriguez, he doesn't always go for the shot, does Gregory, but Gregory's wrestling and his jiu-jitsu overall on the ground, it's scary. That's a big threat to go ahead and think about. Marc-Andre Barriault, he can go ahead and take you on any single part of the feet. That's right. He can go on the feet, and he can go on the ground with you. And, of course, with Chitty, I mean, he's been facing some relatively well-rounded guys that he would expect them to try to wrestle with him more so than just standing in front of his shots. So it'd just be weird. It's just weird for me to think like he's that tentative because of his because of the takedowns. Maybe the RoboCop fight got in his head that, I mean, he can't just put a guy out that easily, but I mean, you should watch tape a little bit on the guys you're fighting. Duraev does not take a hit well. And I mean, even to get you to the ground, you survived. You survived after that. How do you not go ahead and try to throw some punches and try to win some rounds with that? I don't know, man. I don't know exactly what happened with the guy, but maybe that did take a bit of him. I don't know. It's a lot more surprising than I expected.
Could it also be, this is another thing too, because this is an interesting conversation because we were told Chitty was going to come in and rock the division. Like like that's what we were told, and he was getting hyped up. I mean, it was one of the first times I saw a fucking promo video for a prospect when they signed him. Is it just that he's old? Like he's old. He's not a young fighter. I think he's 35.
Yeah, 34 years old. There you go.
Yeah, he's got a long career. It could be that it was too late. The UFC waited too long. He waited too long, and now his career is just over.
Yeah, there aren't too many people I see in the top 15 where Chitty's going to be able to go ahead and compete against. I mean, middleweight's a different division for sure because middleweight's a little bit weaker overall. I mean, a lot of these guys can go ahead and beat some of the other guys on any given day. Styles do make fights. It does depend on the night for some of these guys. I mean, DDP is a top 6 fighter overall. He's like a destiny fighter at this point. That guy is not necessarily good. He has maybe a round of gas. He tries to convince everybody he's not tired, but he's been given a gift of an opponent every single time. I can't wait for DDP to fight like Apollo Costa or something like that. It'd be fun to watch that, but I don't know. Chitty might be able to get something going in middleweight. It just has to be against a favorable matchup. I don't think they're going to give him a wrestler anytime soon either. They'll probably give him something to boost him, get some ratings up.
Well, Corey, you just made my whole night because I've been screaming that the middleweight division is the most overrated division in the UFC for a long time now. And I finally have someone else to agree with me.
Yeah, I've seen some people start saying like it's like an underrated division now. I don't know what the fuck you're watching. Again, DDP's number 6, and he's calling for a title fight. That's probably the most held up division by itself. It's not even just based off matchup. Welterweight's being held up, and lightweight's being held up a little bit just because of how shit the matchmaking has been for the UFC. Middleweight's being held up because they suck. Because Whitaker's beating the fuck out of everybody, and because Izzy and Pereira are just gonna beat the shit out of each other until whatever the fuck something else looks interesting. I don't know. Khamzat's gonna have to shake the division up. That's how it's gonna go.
Well, he's going to. When he fights Paulo, it's gonna wake up the world.
I hope it's not Paulo. I hope we get a fight before that because I think we could build that fight up. But I think we could do Khamzat Cannonier. Khamzat probably blows through Cannonier, gets that problem out of the way in the top of the rankings, and then he could become the new Brunson of the division, and then you end up having Strickland versus Costa. That's a fucking beautiful marketable fight that you could jump on. Costa beats the living shit out of Strickland, and then you have Costa versus Khamzat.
Bro, honestly, I hope Khamzat faces Vettori. That's what I need.
Oh, that'd be hilarious. Oh my god.
Oh my god, he's murder him. You finally get your way, Dustin. You finally get your way.
I cannot stand watching him win anymore, bro. It's watch it. It really, really breaks my heart when he wins. I've never been such a hater of the fight. Honestly, the only one I was probably worse was Ronda Rousey. That was it.
Oh. All right, guys, we have to move on. We're at the point when we start talking about the more controversial fights in this entire card that just transpired over the last weekend. That's right, guys. We are finally going to talk about Maycee Barber versus Andrea Lee. And I don't want to talk about it because it gets me really mad. I feel like I'm channeling my Alec Carr. I'm not going to go into a rant, but let's just say, after looking at the statistics alone, Andrea Lee should have won that fight. Andrea Lee had the more takedowns. She had more control time. She had more significant strikes. I don't understand what the judges were thinking when it came down to Barber winning. Okay, I'm going to bring up the stats in just a little bit. That's my little spiel on this whole matchup. I'm going to start with Corey first. Corey, do you believe that this was the right decision to make from the judges? What did you think about this fight? Yeah.
My bad.
It's all-
I'll paint a picture for you. I actually watched this on TV this time. I usually have them at like a tablet or a PC because I'm usually looking at lines and stuff like that. But I actually spent the time, sat there, watched the fights, didn't do anything with it, right? On the couch, starting to hear the decision. It's going to be Andrea Lee, 30-27, probably 29-28 is what it is, right? Start getting up. I hear a split decision. I'm like, what the fuck are we talking about? There's no way, right? And then you hear Bruce Buffer, obviously, reading the scorecards. You get to 30-27. I start walking away. I'm like, all right, 30-27. It's going to be Andrea Lee. I mean, this is... I hear Maycee. Bro, what are we fucking talking about? That is one of the worst scorecards, hands down, I've ever seen in my life. Genuinely. And I had Andrea Lee picked. I never actually put a bet on her. I don't know why I didn't, because I really wanted to see it and go ahead and put money on that, because that was a stupid fucking line to begin with, by the way. Plus 220 for Andrea Lee against Maycee Barber, who, again, if we go look at Maycee Barber's career, what does she have? A robbery win against Miranda Maverick in a split decision. Montana and De La Rosa, weird fight, basically a clinch fight, nothing special. Again, Jessica Eye actually had a competitive fight against one of the worst fighters in the UFC at the time. And Jessica Eye also retired there. Lost to Roxanne Modafferi, who, again, yes, she tore her ACL in that fight. She was losing the fight prior to it anyways. Roxanne is not a good fighter at all. I love Roxanne and like just how fun she is overall, and she was entertaining, of course. Like she always just jump in. Obviously, she's an OG of the sport, but Roxanne was not good at the time, at the very least at the time. And we know how the sport's evolving. She was losing to Roxanne prior to that. Lost to Grasso, of course, whatever, the champ right now. We understand that, but she does not have a legitimate win. She does not have a single legitimate win. You put her against Andrea Lee. Oh, okay, Andrea Lee's gonna beat the living shit out of her. Your Maycee Barber's advantage was the wrestling and the clinch, and that's exactly what Andrea Lee usually struggles with. People who push the pace to push her against the fence and hold her against the fence. What did Andrea Lee do? She took her on her ass. She put Maycee Barber on her ass every single time. What part of the fight did Maycee Barber win? I had some idiot on Twitter go ahead and reply to me, say that Maycee Barber's elbows in the ground ended up making it clear that she won. There were a couple elbows in the round one. I don't know what the fuck you're talking about. Andrea Lee whooped her ass. And if you're going to pull up like a stats to go look at a fight and say, like, oh, she outstruck Andrea Lee, it's a round by round basis. Don't be a fucking idiot. Please go watch the fight if you're going to watch it. I mean, I know no one's going to really die to rewatch an Andrea Lee versus Maycee Barber fight, but let's get a grip. All right. I mean, Maycee Barber didn't win shit. She didn't win. She scarcely won a minute of the fight in each round, let alone won a round in each round, let alone a 30-27 by Dan Miragliotta, who, by the way, in the split decision with Chidi and Albert Duraev, he was the guy who actually had a level head at the end and gave it to Duraev. It was like, okay, thank God we didn't get a fucking robbery there. Then I'm like, I hear Dan Miragliotta, 30-27. Oh, okay, Dan knows what he's fucking doing. It's his second scorecard ever. He just had a perfectly good decision. Goes on to the Andrea Lee fight, gives it a fucking robbery. I mean, what are we doing at that point, man? Come on.
Yeah. No, I don't know what to say, honestly, except what I just said and heard from Corey. I totally agree with what your sentiments are with this fight. Alec, you watched this fight, I'm pretty sure. What did you think about it? Was it a robbery for Andrea Lee? Tell me your thoughts.
Robbery is a really strong word. I wouldn't go that far. We've seen worse. Let's put it that way. We've seen way worse. I was worried about the decision the whole fight, because Maycee Barber was landing significant strikes, and every time she landed a significant strike, it seemed to do damage. But like Corey just said, she still lost the majority of the fight. Just because you land a significant strike that does damage doesn't mean you won the round. That's not how that works. And you know, we're going into the third round. The third round was going, and I was like, they're gonna give this fucking fight. They're gonna give it to Maycee Barber. They're going to. They're just going to go to her, and then Andrea Lee secured that takedown towards the end of the third round, and I was like, oh, perfect, we're good.
Yeah.
Andrea Lee's gonna win. Like, we're good. Yeah, we don't have to worry about it. She sealed it. She finished the round with a takedown. There's no way that they could give it to Macy. There's just no way because of that takedown. And we all know judges do, even though they shouldn't, but they do remember what happens last. I was certain of it after that point. I was like, okay, cool. She got the takedown. We're done. We can get out of here. We won't have a weird decision on our hands. She got the takedown. She secured it. She kept it too. So I was like, all right, we're good. I don't have to worry about it. And then kind of like Monique and Corey, what you're saying, when they started announcing the fucking scores, yeah. And then they said Macy Barber, I was like, what the fuck? Yeah. She got the takedown. She did whatever every commentator, every analyst, everyone says. To end the fight, you want to end the fight on the ground. If it's going to a decision, end the fight in a dominant position. So I was like, we're set, no worries. And then of course we get what we, the judging this year has been I feel like it's been a lot more upsetting, and we're only in March. So I mean, we're basically in April, but like somebody's got to say something, and there's got to be punishments. Like there's just got to be punishments. And I listen. I don't want to go down the route I've been seeing on some like subreddits and Twitter and stuff that people are calling that Dana White, the UFC should be able to handpick judges. I don't want to do that. I don't want to go down that route. That's spelled. If you give Dana White the chance to be a corrupt motherfucker, he's gonna be a corrupt motherfucker. That's just. I don't blame him. He's a businessman. Like, he can set up fights. He can put favorable judges in. That's a terrible idea. But I do think, and I think with all sports, I think refs, judges, all of them need to start getting more severe punishments for. I mean, this sets Andrea Lee back. Like, let's be, and like Corey said, Andrea Lee's not, she's not a world beater. She's not going to go up there and cause problems in the high rankings, but it sets her career back. That's what pisses me off when we get decisions like this. You're literally, the fight game is so on a fight by fight basis that, like, when the judges make a bad decision, you are literally fucking with their career. Unlike any other sport, right? Baseball makes a bad call. NBA or NFL ref makes a bad call. Generally they got 82. The NBA, they got 82 more games. They'll be fine. You're not ruining their career by making a bad call. But this, like, you could legitimately. I'm just tired of seeing the judges take people's careers in their fucking hands, and I don't want to see it anymore. So I really hope this gets better, because we are not off to a good start with the judging this year whatsoever. In fact, it might be one of the worst beginnings of a year I can remember. To be honest.
I want to add on to that, if I may. The biggest thing with that Texas Commission overall is how stupid they actually scheduled the judges. That there's a ref who refed, I think it was a Fury FC fight, one of the worst decisions I've seen in my life. I don't know if you guys saw it on Twitter, where there was a guy in like a triangle choke / armbar, and he was basically out, very well out cold. It lasted probably an extra minute. The guy had no feeling in his arm the day after. It was one of the worst things ever. And that guy was judging a fight for the UFC that day. Dan Miragliotta was reffing and judging that day. Yeah. And also Jacob Montalvo was reffing and judging that day. You should never be able to have a guy ref and judge on the same day. And also, when it comes to scoring, the biggest thing is, one, obviously, like you mentioned, Alec, people and judges always tend to look at what happened at the end of the fight and end of the round, which is the dumbest thing they could fucking do. That just lets them know that they're not watching the entire round for starters. Or two, they just don't know what the hell's going on in the sport. Two, judges do not grade it round by round. A lot of them wait and then change their grades, change their scores in the middle. We've seen it actually on one of those pay-per-view cards where it ended up handing with Bruce Buffer talking to one of those judges, and we saw him erase something on his card and rewrite it. And how are you doing that if you're grading it round by round, if you're scoring this round by round? I mean, it just means you're not.
Here's what the judging, though, like, when it comes to that, in my opinion, you can't fucking tell me the state is huge. You can't tell me you can't find enough judges to
Yeah.
attend a UFC event, get paid to be a judge on a major event like that. But you have to have, and I agree with you that the guy with a referee and a judge, that shouldn't fucking happen, period.
Yeah.
That shouldn't happen, period. And with Dana White being able to choose judges, I mean, fuck, what I'm looking at, he might as well.
Yeah.
And you fucking ask me. So it comes to a point where I think that there is some weird shit going on, even with commissions, how they choose guys to be like. There's this. I'll never forget the one chick, man, this stupid idiot, when she judged the Canelo fight with fucking
Adelaide Bird. Oh, I thought you were talking about the UFC one.
Fucking no, even boxing, dude. She scored like Canelo winning by 6 rounds. I was like, you're smoking fucking pole. I have zero idea what the fuck you're looking at. Like, but it comes to a point where, like I said, like it's highly fucking weird how these judges look at fights. And I don't care. I don't like, oh, well, you have to go to classes, whatever. There's not a fucking class you can go to that teaches you to be that stupid. If you go to that class and you judge a fight like that, they need to change that motherfucker. Like that's the way I fucking see it. There's a lot of shit wrong with MMA and the way they judge, and I completely agree with it. But again, it's the rules. It's how they fucking set it up, and unfortunately, people get fucking robbed. And Macy Barber, like I said, bro, she's not gonna do shit. I don't know why, but like she looks like no. Macy Barber is just she's kind of a bully, man. It is what it is. She's a bigger girl. She's strong. I mean, it is what it is. She's gonna do shit like that. Now the Miranda Maverick fight, I don't think she won. But at the same time, when it comes to girls like that, man, they're always going to get favor from the judges. They're popular. Izzy got fucking that win against Whitaker in the second fight, which should never fucking happen. We all know why he won that fight. It's because the judges. Yeah. That's exactly what the
so
fuck
happy
happened.
you said that.
so therefore, I've seen a lot of fights where the judges were on their dick. Like there's no reason you think they won that fight, but the judges were on their dick, and it is what it is. You can't change it. You know, all you can tell a fighter is finish his ass then. It is what it is. You know the judges are going to give it to Izzy. You know the judges fucking gave it to John Jones. Even when he was in trouble, you need to finish him. You need to finish him. Do what you fucking got. Don't leave it to the judges.
Literally.
Here's my big thing, right? And I know we got to move on, Monique. So I'll try to be as quick as possible. So I don't understand this. Every other sport in the entire, like every other major sport in the entire world, except for MMA and somewhat boxing, like they have a booth, right? They have a booth where refs. Now I don't want replay. That's not what I'm talking about. I don't want replay. No, absolutely not. Replay belongs nowhere near near MMA. That's stupid. It's a dumb idea. I've seen some people say it would ruin the sport. But what I'm talking about is these judges are watching the fight live. And then you get your break in between the rounds. Why don't they have a booth? Why don't they have some center like they do in the NFL? They have the New York Referee Center, who are sending replays to them in between rounds. You got to look at this. You got to look at this, or they can call and be, or whatever it might be, and say, hey, I got to relook at this moment in this fight. I made a note. I got to relook at this moment and see what happened. You have that time built in. It's just, and Dustin has said this before, and he kind of alluded to it. It's the fucking rules that the UFC has set up. It's the rules that MMA has set up for judging. And I love judge bashing. It's one of my favorite things to do. But I also I have to feel for them too, because they don't have all the tools they need at their disposal to call a real fight. They just don't. The UFC, the MMA promotions don't provide it to them. And the UFC just what was their revenue last year? $9 billion or something? Revenue. like you got money coming in. Let's start dishing out some money, like let alone to the fighters. But
I don't think I think that's outdated. I think it's the stupidest shit. I think they should be in a booth watching that fight on TV like everybody else is. The whole inside bullshit should be done.
They also have a terrible point of view too. That's the other thing. Like,
look into a fucking game.
Like they have a horrible point of view. It's just, and then the favoritism that we talked about it's just unreal, man. And I will say it until I see a fix this year. The judging has been horrendous. And usually that's an indicator of how the whole year's going to go. So I hope, I think it was like 2 years ago, 3 years ago, where the NBA refs were having serious issues, right? And Adam Silver called the Refs Association into his office and said, "What the fuck are you guys doing? Like, what is happening? The beginning of the first half of this year has been horrible. It was an all-star break."
I'll talk about that later. Hey, when we get to that main event, we're gonna talk about that.
So why can't Dana White do the same thing? I know the judges are protected. I get that they're protected differently than refs in other sports. I understand that. But like at this point, we're only just about to be in April. This cannot continue. Like, they have huge events scheduled for this year. Huge events. They got to get their shit together, because this could end up being one of the worst years ever if judges start taking fights into their own hands.
That's for sure, guys. I knew this controversial fight was going to spark up conversation about judging, so I'm not surprised with that. But we got to move on. We have 3 more fights to talk about before we go and move on to our other headlines. So Nate Landwehr, with what he likes to call the sucker punch rear naked choke in the second round, got it done. He had some tremendous striking, pretty much picked Austin Lingo apart before he literally choked him apart. And so I'm going to go to Corey first. Corey, what did you think about that fight? Did you have Nate winning this fight in the first place?
Yeah, I mean, it was a clear one for Nate. A lot of people were jumping on the Lingo plus money. That they had that mixed up completely with the Pineda and Lutz fight. That was definitely not the one to jump on. A lot of people were just saying Nate Landwehr hasn't won a fight as a UFC favorite. I mean, that was basically the fight for him to win as a UFC favorite. He's better than Lingo everywhere. He got caught a couple of times, but it was meant to be a fun fight. It's Nate the Train. It was just a fun fight overall, and he made it a fun fight. Revived the card a little bit from the shit that we were starting to see early. But yeah, it was just a fun fight. Typical Nate the Train fight. Hopefully he gets the Caceres fight coming up soon.
Yeah, that's for sure. I really like the kind of personality that he portrays. I think it's really refreshing. Some people might say otherwise, but I honestly think it's really fun to watch him fight and talk on the mic. So, Alec Carr, what do you think about this fight? Do you agree?
Not good enough to talk like that. You're not Conor McGregor. You're not good enough to talk like that. That's why he annoys me. It was a fun fight. It was, because Lingo was when Lingo. It was like what we were talking about earlier. When Lingo landed, he hurt him. Like, he was landing. When he landed like I think he landed a couple of elbows that were pretty crazy. But the land, as much as I hate Landwehr, like, he's a tough motherfucker. He really is. And he proved that in that fight, because he got hit with shit that would put other fighters out. Like, let's just be honest. He really, really did. And he ended up pulling it out. There's not much to talk about here. I just can't stand it. He's just not good enough to talk like that. That's just my opinion. I hate when people, like, as soon as he starts really stepping up in competition, we're going to forget about Nate the Great real quick.
Okay, I know Alex's sentiments on that. I knew that before the stream, so I was waiting for those kind of comments to surface on our stream and our show. I know Dustin is muted right now, but I think we're going to see a little bit more talking from him, because we are at the co-main event, which was Holly Holm versus Yana Santos. So I know that Dustin watched that fight, and I know he's going to comment on it first. But basically, what my comments on it, Holly Holm, I believe that when it came down to total strikes, her and Yana were almost evenly matched when it came to the strikes. But Holly Holm had more control time, and those takedowns were key to her victory against Yana Santos. I'm going to go to Alec first. Alec, what do you think about Holly Holm's win? Were you surprised? A lot of people were saying, oh, she's 41. She just signed that 6-fight contract with the UFC. They were doubting her. So what are your thoughts on that?
I'm more surprised she signed a 6-fight contract. We talked about this last week. Yana's a good fighter, but Holly Holm is a veteran. a veteran kickboxer, one of the greatest kickboxers of all time. I think we all unanimously picked Holly, if I remember correctly, last week. So no, I'm not shocked. The fight was a good fight. It was close. But Holly, I think, was a clear-cut victor by the end of it. I don't know if we're going to talk about her comments afterwards, but just shut the fuck up, Holly. Like, we don't want to hear your comments. I don't know if we want to get all – because Corey, you might not know this, but we don't shy away from tough topics ever. Like, ever. Monique and I actually did a whole separate podcast on like police brutality and sport and like involvement in sports and stuff like that. That was super good. I gotta find that again. We need to repost that. That was a great recording.
Yeah.
But yeah, like you're 41 years old. You're coming off a victory against Yana, which is an amazing victory for a 41-year-old. Amazing victory for Holly Holm. And let's not get it twisted. Those comments, and this is what I'll say unless we actually dive into this topic, there was a lot that she left out in those comments. If you follow what else she has said, there was a lot left out of those comments that if you knew her other beliefs would make you think they're fucked up. But that being said, great fight by her, great showing by her, especially for a 41-year-old. And she just proved that, she's still one of the best kickboxers in the world. So 6-fight deal is absolutely insane at 41 years old. I don't know. I doubt we see her complete 6 fights. I think she probably retires before then, but great fight again. Great fight by her. She looked exactly how I thought she would.
All right, Corey, what are your thoughts on Holm versus Santos?
Yeah, I mean, I actually disagree with Alec on this part. I do think it's not a good win at all, just because Yana sucks. That division sucks. It's not even Holm's fault, to be honest. The division blows. Like, you can't even say anything about that. It's just not a good division overall. It's women's bantamweight. It's the second worst division in the UFC, right behind the only division without an actual official ranking system in women's featherweight. Women's strawweight, absolutely tremendous. Women's flyweight, becoming absolutely tremendous. Both of those divisions are becoming very, very fun to watch, especially when it comes to women's MMA overall. I do think they should actually add an atomweight division, because that would be probably their most entertaining division by miles. You'll see a Stamp Fairtex. You'll see I think it's I completely forgot her name, but it was the champion at the time. It was like an Andrea Lee or something like that. I don't know I completely what it was in one championship. Saw the super fights there. They have some of the most talented women in the world fighting over there. I don't know why some of them wouldn't come to the UFC if they had an atomweight. Loma Lookboonmee would be probably the atomweight champion if she can go ahead and fight atomweight. So UFC should go ahead and push that. But yeah, speaking for the Holm fight, I don't think it's anything important. Yana is just horrible. I think that whole division is complete garbage. It's just a matter of when they end up pushing it forward and seeing Holly Holm fight like a Juliana Pena, who I also think is not good. It's just a matter of relative to who you're fighting, right? So, I mean, even if she beats Pena, I wouldn't be too surprised. It's just none of them are good. And as for that 6-fight contract, it's one of those things where, like, John Jones signed an 8-fight contract. It's just for the UFC to keep him on hold. They're not going to do anything with it. Like, it's whatever. I will say, though, about her – sorry, just last thing. I will say about her comments at the end. I see a lot of people raving about it on Twitter and stuff like that. And obviously a lot of people's comments back to it where if you think there's anything wrong with what she said, you're part of the problem, or you're just some pedophile that also gives it. So here's how I look at it. You can look at Holly Holm as a person. You can look at all those things, etc., whatever. I think it was just based off of the platform that she was given and based off of just that perspective solely, because not many people that are watching the UFC and not many people that are going to be looking into all those things, especially the people at the arena and stuff like that, not many of them are going to be looking into her life, her livelihood, her beliefs, what she follows religiously, or what she follows politically or stuff like that. I think the main purpose of it is, like, it did spark a lot of controversy on Twitter for whatever reason. I thought it was kind of weird, just because I understand if it's because you know her as a person, stuff like that. That's fine. That point is perfectly valid, Alec. I'm not trying to like denounce that at all. I'm just saying that looking at it from the casual perspective, from the basic perspective, she has a platform. She's just going to say, like, especially with that one movie that just came out, that was kind of like a whole like children's sexualization movie. I mean, just say don't sexualize our kids and stuff like that. Just that solely. I mean, I don't think anybody could disagree with that, right? You can't just say, oh yeah, we should definitely sexualize children. We can't. Why is she saying that out loud? There's no reason she should be saying that on a public platform. No, as a person for herself, I can't speak of her, right? But when it comes to that stuff, it's gonna be hard to just argue with that. So I think that it was a good media platform for her. Sign a new deal. A lot of people co-main event. Go ahead and say something like that, right? It was just a good promo for her to cut essentially at the least bit, right?
Yeah, I mean, listen, what she said in the actual words, of course, I don't disagree with that at all.
Exactly.
Shouldn't be sexualizing children. I think that's pretty obvious, and I think everybody fucking knows that. So like at that point, it's anyway. We don't really need to get into it that much. It's just at that point, why fucking say it? Everybody already knows it. Why are you saying it? Other than your other beliefs. But you're right. You know, casuals aren't going to go check who Holly Holm is and her QAnon background and all that other crazy fucking nonsense that she follows. I will say this real quick. Yes, Yana does suck. I agree with you. But, you know, that's who's there. So that's why.
Right, yeah,
that's why I say it's a good fight for her. You know, she gets to show that she's still ahead of the piss poor competition in the division.
I think the one thing that gave Holm leverage is all the people that started erupting, saying like calling it like I understand like right wing movement. They started getting very political with it, and that's where she wins, right? If you start making it a massive political thing online and stuff like that,
that's what she wants.
Exactly. Like you just lost it. You gave her exactly what she wanted. Not only is she pushing the message that don't sexualize our children, there's a horrible fucking movie that just came out doing that, and she's the co-main event and posting it, and obviously one of the bigger names when it comes to women MMA, especially in history. What are you supposed to say at that point? You just lost. And also, they're going to lose a lot of people who are going to be following them too, whether it's going to be right wing, left wing, etc. I don't think it's about that at all. And if you do make it about that, I mean, you're just feeding right into it.
All right, guys, good topic. I knew these fights were going to spark up like kind of like tangent topics here and there. But quickly, because I know, Dustin, you did watch this co-main event. Do you have any thoughts on Holm versus Santos?
That shit went exactly the way I thought it was gonna go.
Mm-hmm.
She's a better athlete. She's longer, obviously a better kickboxer. What's disgusting about it is she took her down. That was disgusting. She took him down by a kickboxer. You need to go reevaluate some shit because if I'm even an MMA fighter and Izzy double legs me, I'm finna look at my coach like, bro, we've been fucking up. I don't know what we've been doing, but I'm on my ass. Izzy just took me down. It's the same shit with Holly Holm. You let Holly Holm take you down. I don't care if it's a trip or not. That should happen. She's not a ground fighter like that, bro. She's not a wrestler. Holly whooped her ass. I mean, like I said though, if I'm not gonna lie, I agree with you when it comes to I agree with him when it comes to the competition 135. That division sucked ass. That's why Ronda Rousey ran it, because it sucked ass. You know, so therefore it's been ass. It's hard to find really, really talented women to fight at 135. And I agree with also the atom weight thing, the 105. Yes, bro, that'd be electric.
Oh man, yeah.
Some of those. The real problem is bringing these guys over, bringing these women over to America, is really just like flyweight. Flyweight had a shit ton of talent. Flyweight had a lot of fast, talented guys. Problem is, man, it's hard to fucking market them. It is what it is. Some of these small guys don't like to talk shit. They're all respectful, like Demetrius Johnson over there cuddling into shit with Cejudo. That shit, it was stupid. I honestly, like, I understand. Like, oh, we're friends now. We train together. No, bro. No. You guys need that division needs to learn how to promote itself a little bit more. It's the smaller people are just harder to market because a lot of them don't like to talk shit. They like to be all respectful. And I'm sorry, it's the fight game. You can't fucking act like that. And that's how they act. There's a reason Conor is the way he is. It wasn't because he was the most talented guy the UFC has ever seen. It's because he had the biggest mouth and he backed it up at times. So therefore, it is what it is. So I think it's a hard division to promote. I don't think the talent is bad. I think it's a hard division. It's just a hard division to promote. Now, when we look at Holly Holm, dude, she is world class. I'm not going to say Holly Holm isn't. I don't care if the division was tough. Holly Holm's a tough beat, whether you like it or not. Holly Holm's a fucking tough beat. You're not going to outstrike her. Like it's probably not going to happen unless you land some big ass shots. I mean, it's probably not going to happen. And then when it comes to her being 41 and signing, she's not fucking Tom Brady. I have zero idea what the fuck she's doing.
Yeah.
Like, you're not going to fight till you're 50. Come on, bro. She probably has one more title run. She's going after Amanda Nunes, which Amanda, again, is a better wrestler. just a better wrestler. She's gonna clinch you. She's gonna take you down. You think she's gonna sit over there on the outside against Holly Holm? She's not. She's not stupid. Like, come on, dude. You know damn well she's not gonna do that. She's gonna beat Holly Holm because she's gonna get inside. She's gonna do MMA type shit. It is what it is. But at the same time, Holly Holm's a very talented fighter. I don't take nothing away from her, dude. Nothing away from her. That girl is a beast. But it's just the fact that I do agree that the competition isn't much. But that ain't her fault. I mean, fuck. Demetrius Johnson was fighting a bunch of no names for a while too. Not his fault. He's just a great fighter. And maybe those fighters would have looked better if they weren't fighting Demetrius Johnson. John Dodson, I think in his prime, if fucking Demetrius wasn't there, John Dodson would have been a bigger star. It's just the fact that Demetrius got his ass. It is what it is. Sometimes there's people that have your number and you can't beat them. And it is what it is. And it's just to the fact of Holly Holm doesn't have a lot of competition around her, and unfortunately. But in her comments at the end, man, I think it was a little overkill. I'm not going to lie. Little overkill. But at the same time, I don't disagree. I'm not going to suffer and be like, oh, yeah, them child drag shows, everybody should watch that shit. No, you should. No, fucking. So, no, you should. When it comes to the trafficking, and that's a real thing in the United States, I know people think the United States is a safe place. It's not. It's far fucking from it. That shit happens in regular neighborhoods all the time. It is what it is. So I don't blame her for saying it. It's just, I believe at the time, yeah, it was a little bit overkill at the end of a fight. I know Patty was talking about suicide, but that was because his best friend just died. Like his best friend killed him, and that he knew since he was a teenager. So I get that. But yeah, it was a little bit misplaced to a point, but her points weren't wrong. And it is what it is. I mean, people can make it political if they want. I don't think it's political to say that kids shouldn't be like that.
Yeah.
I don't give a shit what side of fucking politics you're on. That should be sacred. That should be that's sacred ground. So therefore, I agree with what she said. I do agree that it was, at the event, just how she placed it was a little bit weird. But at the same time, hey, fuck it. She said something true. I'm not going to sit over here and be like, oh, no, you were fucked up for saying that. She wasn't. So therefore, yeah, a little bit misplaced, but hey, she had the platform. She took it. Can't be mad. It is what it is.
All right. Thank you, Dustin, for those comments. But we are finally at that point where we can finally talk about the main event of UFC San Antonio, full of excitement, full of controversy, literally the main event that many people were dying to see. I know I was. And going into it, I picked Chito Vera to win. So you can see how that went for me and my bets. But
oh, I thought you said Chito Vera won. I was like, what the
no, that's the opposite. I'm trying to say the opposite right now, Dustin. So basically, if anyone did not watch the main event, which you should go ahead and watch either the highlights or the fight if you haven't watched it yet. Corey Sandhagen, the Sandman, very technical striking, picked Chito apart pretty much, stuck him with a lot of total significant strikes, better than Chito Vera by a landslide. A lot of leg kicks, body shots, control time, and even takedowns were in effect for Corey Sandhagen. So he pretty much fought the perfect fight. I'm going to go to Dustin first because Dustin didn't have much time to talk about the earlier fights. So, and we're going to talk about the judging as well. I believe that's kind of like the trend for this headline apparently is talking about judging and how that's going in the UFC. So Dustin, what did you think about the main event? And then I know you want to talk about the judge that scored for Vera 3 rounds.
I barely want to talk about it. You're just retarded.
Yeah.
Like, you're just completely fucking stupid. You are remedial in the very sense of the word. Like, I want you to go to the dictionary and read that shit verbatim out loud in front of a packed stadium because that's what you are. You are absolutely fucking remedial. That's worse than boxing. I really think that's worse than boxing. I don't think I've ever even seen something that bad in boxing, and it has a long fucking history. So, Chito Vera, I don't even want to talk to Chito. I'm going to look at his coaches. Like, I'm like, bro, this ain't fucking boxing. That whole thing where you slow down in the first 3 rounds. No, you don't. No, you don't. No, you don't. If you're going to take some fucking rounds to feel somebody out, you take the first round. You let Sandhagen, you get a feel for his combos. You get a feel for his energy. You get a feel for his body. and how he's angling at you and how he throws. I get that, man. You want to slow down and counter punch for a round and feel Corey Sandhagen out? Because you should. Corey Sandhagen, he's very talented striker. But it comes to a point where you slow down to the point where it looked like, dude, this ain't no damn, you're trying to mimic him or something? You're just standing in front of him? I don't know what he was doing. I have zero clue what he was doing. I was expecting Cheeto to have a little bit more of a aggressive take. I don't know if he was scared of Sandhagen landing certain shots if he came in, or if he didn't want to be aggressive because Sandhagen was this or Sandhagen was that. But I'm like, come on, dude. Corey Sandhagen, yes, he's landed D's. He's landed some powerful shit. But it comes to a point where I get it, man. He's powerful. But everybody you face that's a top 5 fighter, that's an elite fighter, is going to be powerful. Most of the time. They're going to be able to land shots. They're going to be able to hit you. And in my opinion, looked like he was scared to take a chance against Corey. Like he didn't want to go in. He just didn't want to get in. And I was like, Corey Sandhagen is not someone you're going to counter strike. He's not. He's clean. He's very clean, very technical. He comes in smart. It's not like he lunges. He punches you, man. He lands shit. It's awkward. You're not going to sit over here and just feel this dude out for a couple rounds. That's not how it's going to go. You treat it like it was a 12-round boxing fight. Wrong fucking sport. That's not how this goes. This ain't Benavidez versus Caleb Plant. It's not. You don't get to feel a dude out. You need it. It's 5 rounds, and if he wins 3 in the very first 3, you finish him or you don't. And I'm sorry, Corey Sandhagen doesn't exactly have a history of getting knocked out. Mm-hmm. So I have a hard fuck, man. I don't understand the game plan. I didn't get it at all. He landed a few shots. He landed like a straight. He landed a 1-2, and the announcers were going like, "Oh my god, best shot of the fight." Well, that's easy to fucking say when he didn't throw a punch for the first 15 minutes. Like, I mean, damn, yeah, you finally landed a 1-2. Congrats. But Cheeto Vera looked stupid. Like, in my opinion, he looked like he didn't belong there. I have zero idea what he thought about that Corey Sandhagen fight, but he looked like he didn't belong there. Corey Sandhagen was doing everything he wanted. And it wasn't even a competition, in my opinion. It just wasn't. Corey Sandhagen easily won that fucking fight. And yes, the judge, whoever gave him 3 rounds, needs to be suspended for life. I don't know what the hell they were watching. I have zero clue what they were watching. I got so bored watching that fight, I started playing games on my phone because Cheeto Vera just wouldn't do shit. It was like a stick. You got to poke him. Like, you gonna fucking swing? You're gonna do something? Like, bro, he just stood there. I'm sorry, you stood there most of the fight. That shit was boring. Whoever expected that to be a good fight, Corey Sandhagen, in my opinion, made him look like a kid. Made him look like a scared dude. I don't know what the hell he was doing. Cheeto Vera is supposed to be a little bit more tough than that. I don't know what was going on in Cheeto's head or his coaches, and that's how I feel about it. It was fucking weird. I don't know what the hell he was doing.
Okay, thank you, Dustin, for your sentiments. I'm gonna go to Alec next. Alec, what did you think about the main event? I'm sure you have your own thoughts, and when it comes to the judging, I'm sure you also have more thoughts on that. So please share.
Yeah, that judge can go fuck himself. I mean,
yeah.
like quite honestly, like that's ridiculous. He should be ashamed. Honestly, ashamed of, like, that's the word I'm choosing to use in this one, because there wasn't a more clear-cut victory. Probably clear-cut decision victory like this year for our main event. Probably not. I mean, a decision victory I'm talking about. Corey Sandhagen proved to the world he is who we thought he was. Corey Sandhagen proved to the world that, I am one of the best in this division. I absolutely am. And my loss to TJ Dillashaw, and I say that in parentheses, because and Corey, you don't know this, but I am very adamant that Corey Sandhagen fucking won that fight.
I mean, he won it. Yeah, that was stupid. Yeah, that was horrible.
Yeah, he made TJ Dillashaw go on a year-long fucking medical suspension.
You don't. First of all, you don't say Tilly. Hey, don't ever say TJ on this show again. His name is not TJ.
Anyway, I move on. At the time, put on the best fucking performance against Piotr Jan we've ever seen. Like, seriously, those first two and a half rounds were like, oh my God, Sandhagen's gonna win. And he's gonna win this fight. He's pulling away. And then Jan did prime Jan things. He just was like, all right, my fight now. And you know, Sandhagen's been getting a lot of, I wouldn't say hate. No one's talking about him as one of the best fighters in the division. And maybe it's because this division is actually really good now.
When he fights Sugar Sean, dude. If he fights Sugar Sean, I think.
Yeah, I don't know. Here's my thing. I saw this really dumb comment right on Twitter, which, you know, MMA Twitter is MMA Twitter. There's lots of dumb comments. But it said Corey Sandhagen had to turn that into a boring fight because he's not the better fighter.
He was striking and he was throwing the whole fucking time. Just because Cheeto Vera was sitting over there acting like a little fucking dweeb.
What I did was I said, let me correct this for you. Corey Sandhagen showed massive improvement in his defensive striking and takedown offense in a clear-cut victory against one of the top fighters in the division. That's what happened. Corey Sandhagen's game progressed so much from his last fight. He was so much better than he's ever looked. Seriously, just tactically was better. Was he landing those knees clean all the time? No, but Cheeto Vera is a good fighter. He's a great defensive fighter too. Cheeto Vera is just he couldn't touch him. Every time he would try to throw, that Sandhagen would bounce out, and then he'd come back in, and then he'd bounce out. Then he'd do a takedown. The first takedown blew my fucking mind. I was like, what the fuck? Corey Sandhagen's got a takedown? This is awesome. And so I don't think he can beat Merab. I don't. And you guys, Dustin and Monique know this. I fucking love Corey Sandhagen. He's from the same town my fiance grew up in. The guy just seems like a good dude. And you know, he's just, his fight style is one that I can just sit back and watch. If everybody fought like him, I'd be like, this is great. So he just proved that he's in the top echelon. That's what he did. Now he called out Merab, which I think is that's the one thing about Corey. He's never afraid to take the tough fight.
I respected that though. He was like,
I know. I respect it too, but he is never afraid. You know, he took on Yadong Song. He took on Piotr Jan. He took on TJ Dillashaw, and he's coming back. The guy has never turned down a tough fight in his entire life, and he usually seeks them out. A Merab fight, listen, I'd be interested to see it because Corey Sandhagen's takedown defense has gotten so much better.
I beat him, bro.
But I don't. That's what I was gonna say. I don't think he beats him. Merab turns that into a very boring fight. Is how I see that going. A very boring fight. But you know, all these people who are trying to, you know, everybody knows that Sandhagen won. But there have been a lot of murmurs about this being a boring fight. And I get it. You know, it was billed as, and you know, we all three sat here last week and said this is gonna be fucking fireworks. But Corey Sandhagen is a really smart fighter, and he knew if he got into a fireworks show with Cheeto Vera, he'd probably lose. He would probably lose because Cheeto Vera's power. Corey Sandhagen has power too. We've seen it. We saw that knee against Frankie Edgar. We should pour some out for Frankie Edgar.
I think there's a difference between timing and power, in my opinion. There's a little bit of a difference. That was great timing.
Sure. Yeah. Yes. But so he knew for sure that if he got in a fucking phone booth fight with Cheeto, that he would probably not make it out of it. So he turned it into a tactical show. I mean, he put on a show. The whole time I was thinking about this, Monique, and you and I have been talking about this fight since it's fucking happened. The Darren Till Wonder Boy fight, where Darren Till put on a tactical show against Wonder Boy. I was just like, I was blown away by this fight. Corey Sandhagen continues to impress me, even in his losses. The guy impresses me. Do I think he'll be champion anytime soon? Probably not, but he is a top echelon fighter in this division, and he just proved it.
All right, thank you, Alec. And finally, Corey, what are your thoughts on the main event for UFC San Antonio?
Yeah, I mean, Sandhagen just did what he was supposed to do. That was a technical fight, and that's typically how he fights. He's a very smart fighter overall, and he finds his holes in every single fight. Even in the first round of the Jan fight, I mean, he did everything he should have done. Granted, it kind of does a tribute to Jan's game. Jan does allow you to go ahead and try to find your way early and build off of it early, and then he goes ahead and beats the living shit out of you for the next couple of rounds. But yeah, I was in between on this fight. I didn't know exactly what had happened. I knew how each side would have gone. I mean, it was if Cheetah was going to win, it was going to be some devastating knockout. He looks slow in every single fight. Sandhagen is beating top competition overall. Looked good in every single one of those fights overall as well. And I mean, the guy's skill set is just very, very well rounded. I can't wait to see what's with him next. With the Merab call out, it'd be interesting. I still have to watch a little bit more tape on it, but I actually disagree with you guys. I think Sandhagen has a good style against to beat Merab. I think he also is a very good 5-round fighter. I think the problem with Merab is just solely his pace. Sandhagen being the bigger fighter does not help Merab at all. Merab has zero top game. Genuinely zero top game. When it comes to grappling overall, Sandhagen is a better pure grappler. Striking, of course, Sandhagen's going to be able to beat him. I do think, honestly, I mean, you could obviously say he just made Jan look like that. I can understand Jan said he had an injury prior to that. I'm the biggest Peter Yan fan you could probably find, but Peter Yan, as you're supposed to say, but yeah, Jan, he said he had an injury before that. Obviously, there was a headbutt that shut his right eye. He had to fight in southpaw because of the leg. Yes, I understand Merab did the damage. Doesn't really happen too often where just randomly a leg goes out, isn't able to fight in his position at all. Had to fight in southpaw, didn't have much to give. In southpaw, wasn't able to put much weight on it to actually provide a good attack going forward. He didn't put much of an attack, did he, for Jan in that fight? And the eye that he had to work with was shut because of a headbutt. Yeah, also Merab had a hand injury, but you also have to look at certain injuries and how they affect fighters and their style. A hand injury wouldn't affect Merab nearly as much with his style, because he doesn't really throw combinations to that extent in Chris boxing and all that stuff. So, I mean, huh?
I don't know about hand injuries don't affect.
No, I'm not saying it doesn't affect him. I'm just saying with his style as opposed to maybe a Rob Font. If Rob Font had a hand injury, that's going to screw his game up heavily because he's solely a boxer. If you go with Merab, yes, the hand injury is going to affect him for sure, especially with the wrestling and all that stuff. But with all the time that he has to heal, it wasn't as severe of an injury. Otherwise, obviously, he wouldn't be in the fight, wouldn't be able to fight overall. And if it was that severe, you'd see something as stupidly as like a TJ Dillashaw fight where he should not be fighting with that shoulder whatsoever at all. And then it just pops out.
If I'm going to comment on injuries when it comes to fighters, though, they all have them.
Exactly.
When do you make that excuse after fights, or like maybe not Peter, but if you make excuses about injuries after fights, first of all, you had a choice. You could have walked in or could have walked out without it. It is what it is. You had the choice to pick it up.
100%.
TJ's a moron. He lost me $300. Fuck him.
That guy's an idiot.
Fuck him. I'll never forget that shit. His name is not. Matter of fact, he's not TJ anymore. He's like fucking number 2 or something. I don't know. But anyway, like I said though, like when injuries when it comes to fights or fighter styles, hey man, I don't know. I know how a hurt hand is, and I couldn't fucking move that shit for months. So
yeah.
I could only imagine trying to grip a guy's leg or trying to do anything with a broken hand. So
yeah.
It just gets to a point where I agree that maybe Sandhagen might have a little bit more of an awkward style for him, but Merab is he's kind of a grinder. Grinders are weird.
Hard to bet against him right now.
You can be as stylistic as Sandhagen is and as fancy, but when you have a guy that's a grinder who really can take a fight to take it to an ugly place, because that's what Colby Covington is. That's what Vettori is. As much as I fucking hate him, they take fights to places they shouldn't be, and that's what I'm saying. Corey Sandhagen's stylistic and the way he's fancy, I like it. Just like Sugar Sean, I'm the biggest fan of Sugar Sean. I don't know how fucking successful he's going to be at championship level because he's not a good wrestler. He just isn't. I don't know how he's going to fare. So it's the same thing I'm looking at Sandhagen as I'm looking at Sugar Sean. I think him and Sugar Sean's a better matchup than going to fight Aljamain Sterling. So
yeah,
it'll never happen.
It is what it is, and that's what I'm saying though. It's just I think Merab's gonna beat him simply because he's going to put a physicality on him. He's not. I don't think he's catching a flying knee to the head. I get it happened to Frankie Edgar, but
Yeah.
it comes to a point where I think Merab is going to grind the dude out. I really think he'll grind him out.
Yeah, that's probably how it would end up going if Merab would win. I don't think Corey would necessarily get a full-on finish. It's going to be very, very hard to finish Merab overall. The guy's gas tank is way too stupid, and that definitely helps his chin overall. I would just say, honestly, look, I would actually take Peter Yan in another fight against Merab. I genuinely would put my money on it. I'm being fully confident in that. So I'd have to watch more tape on it 100%, but I still believe Corey Sandhagen and Peter Yan would go ahead and beat him. And
No, go ahead. Finish. Go ahead.
I was going to say for the Sugar Sean thing, I think where we'll see if Sugar Sean's going to be successful in this division is if he beats Aljamain. If he wins his next fight, whether it's against Aljamain Sterling or against Henry Cejudo, and then the next toughest fight he'll have will be against Umar Nurmagomedov when he gets up there. But that's essentially it. I think Sandhagen just
Here's my thing. Sandhagen should be fighting Sugar Sean next. He should. That's the fight to make.
Mm-hmm.
The UFC's never going to do that.
Yeah.
Sugar Sean right now he's the golden boy. And I'll tell you what, right now, after watching that, I'm probably picking Sandhagen in that fight. Just to be honest with you. The guy's tough as nails. He's so he's so goddamn smart in the octagon. Like
I got O'Malley in that.
Sugar Sean's got power, dude. There's something. I'm sorry, dude. It's not timing with Sugar Sean, dude. You get fancy like that, he's gonna get fancy back. And I'm telling you right now, Sugar Sean punches harder than Sandhagen.
I think he's too fast for Sandhagen. I think that's what it would end up coming up to.
Punches harder. If they get I think he punches harder. I think he's gonna snap.
He might punch harder, but the fight, I give the fight IQ to Sandhagen being smarter, and we just watch. Listen, I know Chito Vera is not the best grappler, but we just watch Sandhagen secure takedowns. We watch the progression in his game. Like
Corey Sandhagen isn't he's not going to sit over here and try to. If he tries to take O'Malley down, I'd be shocked.
Why wouldn't you? Sugar Sean O'Malley's got zero ground game. I'll tell you right now, Dustin. I'll tell you right now, and I hate that I'm saying this. Sugar Sean O'Malley's he's not beating Aljo. He's not.
I agree with you.
He's not beating Aljo. He's not beating Cejudo. He's not beating anybody that's at his level who also has a ground game. He's got zero. He's got zero fucking ground game.
He can get up.
You know I love the guy. You guys know I love Sugar Sean. But like I'm sorry. I think Sandhagen's a smarter fighter. I watched the progression in his game in the Chito fight. I watched him secure clean takedowns against Chito Vera.
I could have swore he did. I'm not.
What?
Go back. Sugar Sean took down Peter Yan.
Yeah, it was a shot, but he didn't necessarily have full control over him at the end. It was like towards the end of the round, it was like a slight one, but it wasn't.
Right. It's a wrestling takedown. You get your knees on the ground.
They gave him the takedown. I thought it was less of a takedown than Colby had on Usman, and Colby should have had a takedown. So
that was
weird.
Takedown.
That was a takedown. Yeah, that was a takedown.
His ass was on the mat.
Yeah, that's two.
Yeah, I didn't want to bring up the whole Sugar Sean versus Corey Sandhagen because I knew that wasn't going to happen. You know, the UFC, I don't think is ever going to make that fight, at least right now. And that really disappoints me as a fan. So I didn't want to go into it, but I'm glad you guys did. And Corey, as you can see, Alec and Dustin, they're not afraid to go at each other sometimes. Show, that's for sure. So we are done talking about UFC San Antonio. We're going to quickly go ahead and talk about our other headlines before we end the show. So one of the headlines that really got me riled up, and for some reason it's the women in MMA right now that are getting me all riled up. It is Valentina Shevchenko pretty much accusing Jason Herzog, which is one of the referees and the referee of the fight against Alexa Grasso, saying that he had an influence on the outcome of the fight. That's all I have to say about that. Do I agree with that? Nope. I think that Valentina made a mistake with exposing her back, and Alexa Grasso capitalized on that and got that rear naked choke that we all saw. And so I'm going to go to Corey first. Corey, what do you think about Valentina saying, all these comments about Jason Herzog?
Yeah, I don't think there's any reason to speak much about this. I mean, I just think that I guess the stand up that he gave him was pretty bad, but she didn't even explain it as that. She also didn't really take ownership for the spinning back kick. The kick itself is not a problem. It's when she threw it, where she threw it against the cage, all that. Like, it just wasn't necessarily the smartest thing. It's just a poor way to take a loss for Valentina. It is what it is. We move. I mean, it's kind of expected from her. It's either she's gonna be the classiest person or the biggest excuse. It's one or the other. And I mean, we saw the latter. So, yeah, that's all I have to say about it. It's a little bit of load of bullshit.
That's for sure. Dustin, what did you think about this headline when I posted it up?
I'm with Nate Diaz. I hate spinny shit. Spinny shit is so stupid. I'm sorry. I don't give a shit how how athletic you are and you can throw it. It's fucking stupid. If it gets ducked and you miss, it's an automatic takedown. Automatic takedown, dude. If they're a wrestler, it's automatic, dude. You're going to the mat. If you land it, sure. Like if you land it like Uriah Hall did on the Ultimate Fighter, you're gonna damn near kill a guy. I'm not gonna say it's not a powerful strike. I'm not gonna say it doesn't work, because it does. But it works when you time it like a fucking dude. It's like you have to be like a master at it to really get it down like that and to really land it consistently. Conor McGregor tired himself out like that, trying to do that shit on Nate Diaz. Like they all tire themselves out doing spinny shit all the time. It's weird. Like, damn, this ain't no damn karate tournament, man. Fuck, stop it. But at the same time, it is what it is. If you throw a spinning back kick, man, you're putting yourself at risk. If you don't land that shit, they can get your back, bro. They can get your back easily. With Valentina talking shit about the refs, dude, come on, you just had a shitty outing. The last fight you were in, you had a shitty outing. A lot of people were arguing when you were done. Not me. I thought you were still a great fighter. I thought you were a champ that just had a really good matchup and it was a good fight. But it was a point of you just had a shitty outing. And then you get beat by Alex Grasso. Honestly, that's not the most talented chick out there. People can talk shit all they want. She's not that good. I think she's okay. She caught her back, kind of like Juliana Pena when she caught Amanda Nunes' back that round. I mean, it is what it is. That shit happens. But it's like she's not that good, bro. She's not that good. You didn't fight somebody who was like crazy contender. You're fighting people they just have to put up against you because the division is just, they're just throwing people at her. They're throwing shit to a wall and see if it sticks. And Alex Grasso just stuck, man. It is what it is. She stuck on your back and got you. The ref didn't let you get put in a rear naked choke. The ref didn't let you get your back taken. That was you. That was all you, chick. That was all you. And matter of fact, I support standing up fighters up. I support it. If you're not doing shit on the ground, stand you the fuck up. It is what it is. That's my opinion. If you're not doing any fucking work on the ground, stand up. If you're not advancing your position, stand up. If you're not passing guard, stand up. If you're not throwing punches, stand up. You're against the cage in the clinch. You're not throwing shit. You're not doing anything. Get the fuck off the fence, dude. That's how the sport should be. And I'm sorry. This is one of the things I'm most passionate about. If you are not doing shit in a position, the ref needs to stand you the fuck up. That's why control time gets to 5 minutes. Because these dudes sit over here and do nothing most of the time. And I'm like, well, if you actually throw punches and try to pass guard, they have a chance to scramble. And I was like, they don't have a chance to scramble because you're putting your fucking weight on their neck and they just can't move. That's not advancing position. That's not doing shit. That's not exciting. Get over it. Get over it. You got your shit. You got your shit taken. You got your neck taken. You got your belt taken. You had 2 shitty outings in a row. It is what it is. So, like, her to talk shit about a ref and do all that's just stupid. I lost respect for her kind of because I'm just like, be a fucking champ and take that L. Be a champ and take that L. You're going to come back. You're going to fight her again. There's going to be a second fucking fight. Quit acting like, it's not going to happen again. Dude, she's crazy, dude. And the whole stand-up thing, fuck them. If she ain't do nothing, stand her the fuck up. That's what it is.
For sure. Alec, what do you think about this fight? Not this fight, sorry. The little controversy between Valentina making those comments to Jason Herzog.
Yeah, so, listen. We all got on afterwards and said that in our recap, we all agreed that the stand-up was quick. It was. It was really quick. And there were a couple of stand-ups that night that were really fucking quick. They were even talking about it in the Rogan and the commentators were talking about it. That, whoa, what are you doing? She's just getting started working. Why are you standing her up now? And she's right. She's right. That stand up was really, really quick. She had just started throwing. She like he was struggling to get out and to be able to throw. That's what she was doing. And the stand up was quick. It was. If you go back and watch it, it was a quick stand up. The one thing I will say is, listen, this seems more like a scenario, and I hate that she blamed Jason Herzog, but this is more of the scenario of she was asked the question.
Mm-hmm.
She was asked the question. She just was. And I will say the one thing that people aren't, the headline's I think is a little misleading of what she's saying. You know, she admits she doesn't think the kick was a mistake because she states, I've thrown that kick before. I've thrown it in the same position. I've landed it. And she's right. She's one of the greatest women's fighters of all time. I don't think the kick was a mistake. I think the Grasso and her team did a fucking fantastic job getting her ready for that kick. Like, asking if Shevchenko, the kick was a mistake, is a discredit to Grasso and her team's preparation for that fight. And they showed the tape of her training over and over and over again for Shevchenko to throw that kick because she throws it every fight. And they coached her up to be able to catch it.
So if you're a fighter, why the fuck, if you have a tendency like that to throw something all the time and it's predictable, that's a mistake. That's a mistake.
Doesn't it work?
When has she knocked somebody out? Fuck that. When has she ever landed a spinning back kick and knocked somebody out with it? Did she land a body shot where someone would get KO'd? Did she break someone's ribs? What point was it that effective? No, I need you to tell me that. At what point was it that effective? Let me know. What fight?
Dustin, you're taking away all the work Grasso did to get ready for that kick. She knew she was going to throw it.
Just spinning back kick and got her ass. I'm not saying that's a bad thing. But to say Shevchenko,
Shevchenko has thrown the kick before. No, she doesn't get knockouts with it, but she throws it all the time. Anyway, she throws it all the time. She throws it every fight. It's like her go-to strike is that spinning back kick. And her gas tank is unbelievable. Like, she can get away with doing that stuff.
Not that night, huh? Not that night.
No, that's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying. Grasso did a great job preparing for it. And that's all she was saying in the interview is that I don't think the kick is a mistake. And I kind of agree with her. Now, where I disagree with her is where she says Herzog and all those other little things added up to the loss, obviously.
No,
That a well-prepared fighter is why she lost. And it leads me to think that she's unlike Nunes, who was saying, I had a bad fight. You know, I'm going to be Dustin, let me finish, dude. Let me finish. Unlike Nunes, who admitted to having a bad fight, who did say, you know, she didn't have a training camp, but that's true. She did not have a full training camp leading into the Pena fight. But she admitted, I didn't have a good fight. I fought like shit. And she used it as fuel. This worries me for Shevchenko's future because she's trying to come up with excuses as why she lost instead of just saying Grasso was the better fighter that night. Because she was. Is Grasso the better fighter overall? Fuck no. No, she's not. She's just not. But she was the better fighter that night, and Valentina not being able to admit that is a problem for her future.
Okay, Dustin, did you have anything to say about Alex's comments?
No, the only thing I say is if she was being that humble about the spinning kick, she wouldn't have said shit about the fucking rep. And that's the way I say it. She made a mistake. That's like a boxer saying, even though, like, let's just say you have a strong left hook, like, you throw it, and that dude knows that's your weapon. He knows you throw that shit in every situation, and you throw it, and he counters and knocks you the fuck out. It's a mistake because he knows you throw it. He knows it. He knows it's coming every single time. That's in combat sports, period. If you have a tendency and you do it too damn much, It's going to get caught. Every fighter knows that shit. That's in grappling. That's in striking. For her to say a spinning kicks are stupid unless you fucking land them. It's completely true. They're stupid unless you land them. Stay in the pipes. Spinning elbows and spinning back fist, I can get with. Those are quick.
Mhm.
Those are really powerful, and they're quick. Spinning back kicks are slow as shit, especially in a real fight. If you're doing it in a bag, it's fast because you're doing it in a bag. You're not worried about anything. When you do it in a fight, it's really hard to get that technique down. Moving around the cage and having to move constantly and throw a fucking spinning back kick, it has to be perfectly timed. And like I said, it's deadly when it lands. I'm not saying it's not. I'm saying that she's never done shit with that kick. If she was Uriah Hall and you're knocking people out, or you're breaking ribs, or you're Conor McGregor knocking Seaver down with a fucking spinning back kick, then you do that shit. But she's never caused damage with it. So why she thinks it's a valuable move, I don't exactly know. But I don't think she's humble about the shit because she goes around and makes excuses. You can't tell me that she's blaming refs and then she's saying the spinning back kick wasn't a mistake. It's a mistake. You fucked up. It's a mistake. Every fighter knows that. If Tank is going up against Garcia, he knows that Ryan Garcia is going to throw the fucking left hook. And when he ducks it and sleeps fucking Ryan Garcia, guess what? Throwing that left hook was a mistake. That was a fucking mistake. You knew he was looking for it. It is what it is. And Shevchenko knows she throws that shit. Stop throwing it. You just got trashed.
How many championships did Dan Henderson win with the H-bomb?
It's a fucking right hand. Like, it is what it is. He just has a right hand. He won. He knocked out Bisping with it. Bisping got knocked out. Get the fuck out of here. Don't talk about Bisping.
Dude, go back to Pride.
All right, guys, I'm going to make a new segment on the show that says Alec versus Dustin, because we just pretty much witnessed exactly what I told Corey before this whole show started. And this is, ladies and gentlemen, this is Alec versus Dustin right here. All right, so our last headline, you know, we're going a little bit long on time, but we do have one more headline to talk about, which is going to go really fast. Donald Cerrone is next to be inducted into the UFC Hall of Fame. What is it called? Alec is like shaking his head like a motherfucker right now. So I'm going to go to him, and then I'm going to get everybody else's comments on this whole, I guess, topic or headline, if you want to call it that. Alec, what do you think about this headline? Do you agree with it? I don't think so. Okay, hold on. I'm gonna pick it up. I'm gonna put it up. There you go.
I'm not. I'm gonna try not to rant because we are at an hour 30. But we are at the point. Let me get out first and say this. I respect the fuck out of Donald Cerrone. I want that made clear. That I respect the hell out of him. He's a really good fighter. Was a long time, put on some of the most entertaining fights I've ever seen. Like, just incredible fighter. I'm just getting out in front of saying that. But it's 2023, right? UFC's been around for a long time now. Long time. They have to stop fucking doing this shit. That, like, Donald Cerrone, great fighter, should go down as one of the best not in the Hall of Fame. Donovan McNabb is not in the Hall of Fame for the NFL. You want to know why? Because really good, really good quarterback, but not good enough. Donald Cerrone is the epitome of that. I love him. I love watching his fights. He's cowboy. You can't get it like the guy goes and fights, and then he fucks off to his ranch for a couple of months, and then he fights. He doesn't turn down anything. He's always there. He's always ready. And he's always prepared. Give him all the credit in the world for that. But the UFC needs to start understanding the Hall of Fame means something. It needs to mean something. And we're in 2023. I can't remember. When was UFC 1? I can't remember the year. But, like, we're at the point where only the greatest of all time need to be in there. And Donald Cerrone just isn't. He's not one of the greatest of all time. He's just not. Does he have the most wins in UFC history? Yes, he does. He's also never turned down a fight. He just doesn't stop fighting. He just didn't stop fighting. So, like, it's just upsetting to me because the UFC needs to validate itself. That's at the point we are. And you guys know I'm the self-proclaimed business expert of the UFC, right? The business expert of the UFC. They're at the point in the UFC's lifespan where they need to start taking the shit seriously. They need to start putting only guys like Conor McGregor when he finally retires in there. Sorry, guys like Usman. I'm getting myself all worked up. Guys like Usman when he retires in there. You can't give it to the best journeyman of all time, which is what Donald Cerrone is. You just can't, because it invalidates you as a promotion. You're trying to become the predominant only fight MMA promotion in the entire world. They've made that very clear by their business strategy and their moves. They have pretty much told you in all the moves in as far as the background goes that they want to take over one championship, they want to take over PFL, and they want to take over Bellator. And they want to be the only name in the game. Makes sense. When you give somebody like Donald Cerrone the Hall of Fame, it discredits the rest of what you're doing.
We got to interject. I'm gonna be honest. I'm gonna be more blunt than Alec. This is the "Thank you for getting your ass whooped for me" award.
That's exactly what I was just gonna say, Dustin.
Dana fucking put this poor man. Dana put this poor man on a fucking platter. He was letting killers knock him the fuck out over and over. This is not you're good enough to be in the Hall of Fame. This is you're my good guy. You're my guy. I needed to get knocked the fuck out. I put you up against killers, and you were willing to get beat the fuck up and risk your health. This is what that award is for me. He is not even close to the Hall of Fame. Yes, I love fucking Donald Cerrone. I'm sick of it. He's not good enough to be in the fucking Hall of Fame. It doesn't make any fucking sense. You've never won a belt. You've never even smelt it. So therefore, you were literally Dana's dude. And I'm sorry, and I don't want to disrespect the man because I think he's a great fighter. But at the same time, Dana, I want you to realize that Dana was setting you up to get your ass whooped. He was setting you up to get your ass whooped over and over, and you just took it. I don't get it, but you did it. You're Hall of Fame right now. I'm serious. I cannot fucking be more serious. The only reason you're in the Hall of Fame is because you were Dana's. You were Dana's fucking just decoy, dude. Dana went fishing. You're the worm on the fucking hook. I swear to God, every time he went fishing, he put you up against a killer and you got your ass beat. No, he's not a Hall of Famer. Not even fucking close. This is Dana White being like, put him in. I like him.
Yeah, the thing is, like, his best win, I get it. It was against Eddie Alvarez. That's a huge victory. But that was, you go down his record and nothing screams out to you that, oh yeah, Hall of Famer. Like you got to beat other Hall of Famers on a regular basis to be in the fucking Hall of Fame. And Dustin, you hit the nail on the head, and that's where I was getting. Is this? It seems like this was a reward for him not saying no. That's what it feels like to me. Oh, you want to fight Conor McGregor? Sure. like that. That's what this feels like to me. It's just fraudulent. It screams mediocrity, is what it does. And they can't, this needs to be the absolute last fucking time this happens, because if they continue to do this, it's gonna devalue them as a company to actual fight fans, who is the base. That's your core fan group. Like, if you lose actual fight fans, you're done. You're dead. It doesn't matter how exciting the UFC is. If you lose actual fight fans, you're dead. So it's annoying. I hate it. I love Donald Cerrone. So if you ever happen upon this stream and feel like watching an hour and 40 minutes of us talk, I love you, Donald Cerrone. You are part of the reason why I love the UFC, but you're not a Hall of Famer. And I think if he was honest with himself, he would say the same thing. And when they panned to him, he looked like it was kind of like, yeah, I guess I'm going to the Hall of Fame. Like, so I just, that's why I wanted to talk about this, because I do think it's frankly just bullshit that he's going in.
No, so I'm so emotional about it because I was mad for Donald Cerrone. I was mad for him. I was pissed. I was sitting every time I watched Donald Cerrone fight and out of his prime, and they would stick him against these guys, dude. I was like, this is bullshit. Like, start treating him like Clay Guida. Why don't you put him against some fucking non-ranked people or something? They throw him in there with absolute killers, dude. Every time he'd fight, it was absolute killers. I'm just like, leave this man alone, bro. You just keep setting him up to get beat. You're using him to get his ass beat. Use Nate Diaz. Nate Diaz loses all the fucking time. Let him in there. He talks shit, bad motherfucker, all that shit. Let him go in there and get his head knocked off. I mean, no one cares. Donald Cerrone was a good fighter. Leave him the fuck alone. No, they sent him against a bunch of killers to whoop his ass, man. Like, I felt so bad. There was a one UFC veteran that I was so sick of watching getting beat the fuck up. I couldn't stand it. I was like, this is ugly. And then Dana knows what the fuck he's doing. He knows exactly what he was doing. I hated it. So him going to the Hall of Fame, I just hate it. I hate it because I know what it's for, and it's stupid.
All right, strong opinions from my two co-hosts. And finally, last but not least, Corey, what do you think about Donald Cerrone getting inducted into the UFC Hall of Fame?
I mean, these two guys might give me shit for it. I'm not the biggest Cerrone fan, but I mean, just because it's the UFC Hall of Fame, not the MMA Hall of Fame, like, it's just because of the amount of accolades he holds. I think it's kind of the reason he got into there. It's just how many times he had whatever the most fights, most wins, most finishes, etc. at the time. Also, the people he beat. The latter end of his career, it sucked just watching it as a fight fan, just considering how old he was and who he was fighting. I mean, he was ranked number 5 going into the McGregor fight after he lost to Ferguson and Gaethje by finish. And I mean, losing the Gaethje and Ferguson by finish going into a McGregor fight, it's a clear setup fight, obviously. He was still number 5 in the ranking. So, again, clear setup fight for Conor. And then he just lost to Anthony Pettis. And they were weird with the fights they were giving him. I mean, lost to Anthony Pettis, lost to he fought Nico Price, lost to Morono, lost to Jim Miller. I mean, even Jim Miller, even though however old he is, he's looked much better than Cerrone has. And I mean, Cerrone had a little bit of success in that fight, but it still wasn't a good send-off fight for Cerrone overall. They were weird with the matchmaking they've been giving him throughout his career, but man, you could scroll down. This guy fought way too many fucking times, and he's beating some reputable names. I mean, I'm not gonna necessarily just solely base it off of what he's done as like a champion or whatever. He's not a champ, obviously. He's fought for the title a couple of times, former title challenger or whatever, but I mean, he's beaten some pretty decent guys overall. Obviously, Oliveira early in his career wasn't the same guy, but he still beat Charles Oliveira nonetheless. Jeremy Stevens earlier on, when Jeremy Stevens was a little bit better. He beat Edson Barbosa in Edson Barbosa's relative prime in 2014. Jim Miller in Jim Miller's relative prime in 2014. He beat Eddie Alvarez, who Eddie Alvarez at the time was right there at the championship at the end of 2014. So he did beat a couple of good guys, especially when it came towards their prime. Benson Henderson in 2015 as well. So he beat some pretty reputable names at reputable times. I think the latter end of his career was a horrible plague for it, but it is hard to just push a guy who wasn't a champion at all and didn't really have much success in any championship fights he had, nor against many championship caliber fighters, apart from maybe Eddie Alvarez, Benson Henderson, etc. So he has former champions on his resume. He has, especially when it's in the relative primes, he has current guy who was almost essentially current champion, just lost it in Charles Oliveira earlier on in his career. So I don't know. I think it's just solely the accolades that sell him. I don't mind it just because, I mean, with all the push that he had, with all the accolades he had, especially going into the Conor McGregor fight, I mean, if he wasn't marketable enough as a guy who's going to be a future Hall of Famer, I don't think they would have made that McGregor fight ever. Just silly as a setup. Number 5, he had the most knockouts in this, most head kick knockouts in this, all that, etc. So I think it's all right. It's not the worst thing. I have a little bit of a softer feeling on it than the other two guys, than Alec and Dustin here.
Yeah, that's for sure.
I just got to say that, here's my other point. Listen, Eddie Alvarez is the guy, you point out Edson Barbosa, Jim Miller, and some of those guys. My question is, do you think Edson Barbosa and Jim Miller have the same success they did in today's MMA? Because I don't.
Oh, you mean
I
like
think
guys
Eddie
back
does.
then?
What was that?
You're talking about like their skill sets, if they were in their prime now, how would they fare in the UFC?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of hard to compare that because almost every fighter back then. Oh, I
Well,
say almost, of course. Wouldn't
right.
really
So
compete.
here's my point.
I think
Here's my
Chuck Liddell
point.
would die. I think Chuck Liddell would not get a win in the UFC today. Yeah.
No, he would not. He would absolutely not. You can't fight flat-footed anymore. Look at Sean Strickland. Anyway, my point is, like, I don't want to compare eras. My point is, though, like, this is the rare case where we have proof that in his younger years, his skill set matched up with some of the best fighters in the world. And as he continued to age and the MMA fighters got better and better and better, he fell and fell and fell. It's just, I don't know. Listen, in the grand scheme of things, it's not that big of a deal. The big issue, though, is if they continue to do this with these older fighters who just took fights, it's going to cause problems for them later on. The UFC, it's going to cause problems for them later on as far as marketing and stuff like that goes. It just will, because fight fans won't respect the Hall of Fame. And if you don't respect the Hall of Fame and you see the promotion not respecting greatness, you're going to start looking elsewhere. It's just human nature.
Yeah.
But the UFC is not the MMA Hall of Fame, then what is?
Yeah, right. Exactly. Yeah. I think it's
it's
just
not-
because they label it as that. Just because Cerrone has the most X amount of UFC, whatever, it's all those records that
Everything.
started pushing. Yeah, it's just
It's also because he had so many fights.
exactly. And I think that's the only
see
thing.
I see Corey's sentiment, though. He's saying because of X amount of wins, X amount of knockouts, but
Yeah, but he was never champion. So he
Right.
has all those things,
No,
but he was never champion, which mattered.
what I'm saying though is like I understand his sentiment, what he's talking
So
about.
do I.
It's a legit argument. You can say that he's had all this experience, say that. But in the grand scheme of things, as long as probably all of us that watch fights, no one gives a shit about that though.
Yeah.
Here's
Like, unless you've got a run, unless you really go to championship runs and got belt.
here's the absolute last point I have on this. The Hall of Fame is not meant as a respect. The Hall of Fame is meant for greatness.
I would say guys who have the most of certain things and who have accomplished a certain amount in the sport, especially going into a title challenger and beating some guys at least at that time in their prime, you'd have to consider that greatness at some sort, right? Just because, yeah, I understand that it's if you put maybe an Eddie Alvarez now or certain guys now, they wouldn't really be as good. I don't even think Donald Cerrone right now in his prime would be the greatest in the lightweight division. I actually think he'd be able to compete relatively decently in his prime in the welterweight division, not at the very top of it, but he'd be in the mix in the rankings somewhere at his prime for this year's welterweight ranking. But like I don't know. I think at some point you have to consider some of that greatness, regardless of whether or not he was a champion, regardless of whether or not he is some insanely great fighter and a memorable one at that. I think it's just because they have a good highlight reel of him. They have those accolades they could put together and all these fights he took. I mean, it's hard to fight against the UFC and say you can't do that. I think that's probably the best way for them to be able to put it. You can't tell me I did it. I can't because he did this, he did this, he did this. He holds all these records for the company. How could he not be in the company's Hall of Fame with having all these records for the company? It's just hard.
Alec, did you want to add to that in any regard?
No, I mean I respect the opinion, Corey, but I can't agree with it. Just can't. Donald Cerrone. Listen, being champ is not everything, but I take that back. I take that back. Being champ is everything, and I think the Hall of Fame now, not previously. If he had retired 5 years ago, we wouldn't be having this conversation. If he had retired 3 years ago, we wouldn't be having this conversation, and he made it in the Hall of Fame. The fact is he didn't, and he kept fighting, and he kept fighting, and he kept fighting. And he didn't quit because he saw it as quitting, and it's rewarding to me. It's rewarding that old guard mentality. When you're not, he wasn't. Dan Henderson was never a UFC champion. Dan Henderson is one of the greatest MMA fighters of his era.
Mm-hmm.
So that's my point. Donald Cerrone would never consider pound for pound top 5 of his era. So and that's who the Hall of Fame needs to be reserved for going forward, because the UFC has been around for.
I'll make you feel better, Corey. He always talks shit about it. Fuck Dan Henderson. Dan Henderson ain't shit. I swear to God.
I agree with it. He's just
he
a fun
fucking-
bomb.
He's a fun fucking beating Bisping. No, Dan Henderson
I
ain't a
can't
guy.
let that go. Hold on.
I'm gonna
Dan
make
Henderson ain't shit. Are you
Look,
kidding me?
He's beating fighters 100%. Don't get me wrong. If you just put his skill set in right now and who he is right now in middleweight or in general,
Absolutely.
he's a very fun
Absolutely.
career.
Of his era. He is one of the greatest of his era. He just did.
I wouldn't say greatest. I would
Dude,
say
he beat everybody.
I would
So
say
is
one of the more
Chuck
fun ones. I mean, what is everybody? He had a big knockout against Vitor. He had not a knockout. He actually beat Vitor in a decision. He had a good knockout against Vanderlei Silva, who is honestly one of the more overrated fighters going into this entire thing. Rich Franklin
Vanderlei's still
decision.
overrated. He's
Yeah,
still
he's
overrated.
overrated. I mean, he had a random knockout against Bisping early.
Beat Nakamura.
Yeah, the Fedor win, which everyone knows. Like it's
Bisping
nothing.
sucks.
He has some reputable wins, but I mean, I would
In
honestly say
pride,
Cerrone.
too. Let's not forget, in pride, he
Yeah,
has reputable wins. It's different.
But
It's different.
100%. And I just mainly think it's just him and Cerrone are pretty comparable. I think the only difference is Cerrone holds more records, and Cerrone probably. I mean, did he have more title fights? I don't remember, but he also they're both title challengers. I'd probably just say just because of Cerrone's accolades, he'd be more of a.
Dan,
He also Hendo beat Fedor at Strikeforce too.
Yeah, but
Let's
that's
not
like
forget
not
that.
you. It's not UFC Hall of Fame, and
He lost to Bisping. That's all you need to fucking know. That's
Okay.
Yeah,
he
old
didn't
man
fucking
was-
lose that fight. We all know that. Shut
Oh,
up.
come on,
Just
he
stop
lost
it.
it. He lost that second fight.
Just stop it. He didn't
He
lose that fight.
He had two overhand
Dana White,
rights.
Dana White came on stage and said you won the fight and was getting ready to give him the belt before the decision was.
He had two over. Dana White said Patty Pimblett won the Jared Gordon fight. Dana White's word doesn't mean
Bro,
shit.
Dana White don't know shit.
Dana White hates Dan Henderson.
Yeah, but I mean, I don't know, man. I'm not the biggest fan of that take, man. Come on, Henderson had two overhand rights in that fight, and that was about it. He was a punching bag rest of the fight.
Okay, guys, I had to get my word in here, or this show is never gonna end. Okay, we digress. We all digress.
Yeah.
I know Dustin had to throw the whole Dan Henderson bomb in there. I knew this was gonna happen. I'm not surprised. But Corey, again, thank you so much for being on the show. We had so much fun. As you can see, we have a lot of fun on Fights Unwrapped with Dustin and Alec kind of going at each other, or sometimes they're on each other's side, and it's like, you know, old married couple kind of relationship that they have in there. Thank you,
Hey,
everybody.
brothers. It's like brothers.
It's just like brothers. Yeah, we're a whole big happy family here. Corey, if you want to plug in any of your, you know, channels and Discord, everything like that, you go ahead right now before we end the show.
Yeah, just obviously you can check me out on Twitter at Boncourt Sports. I have a TikTok and Instagram, same handle, but I don't use them nearly as much. You'll see the podcast every single day. We have guests on. Obviously the big episode, we had the Yanni the Greek, we had Andrew Gambis on yesterday, and we have Clint McNeil coming on tomorrow. But the main thing obviously is the Discord. You could join our sports betting Discord. Transparency is the number one thing we showcase. We have a free pick every single day, and we have a pretty interesting premium side that you could see all the numbers we do daily, monthly, and yearly in it. So I hope you guys enjoy it. If you guys like sports betting, and go ahead and hook us up there, and always DM me, Corey, in the Discord, or DM me on Twitter, and I can have any conversation, answer any questions you want.
All right. Thank you, Corey. Thank you to my co-hosts, Dustin Hunt and Alec Carr. Never a disappointment, never a dull moment on the show, that's for sure. Thank you guys for joining us live. It's almost been 2 hours that we've been talking about these headlines, so we apologize a little bit for the timing of it, but it's all good. Everybody have a good night, and next week we will talk about UFC 287.